Hello, my name's Elizabeth Hopkinson, and I'm going to be reading a story from my book, Asexual Myths Tales, which was published this year. It's the companion volume to Asexual Fairy Tales that came out last year, and you can buy both of them from Silverwood Books or by going through my website elizabethhopkinson.uk. The story I'd like to read today is called The Snow Maiden. It's a Russian story, and there's a lot of different versions of this story, but the version that I'm going to tell, the version that I've retold in my book, is based on an opera by Rimsky-Korsakov, which was then made into a ballet. So this is the version that I'm going to tell about Snegurochka, the Snow Maiden. Many thousands of years ago, when nature spirits still walked the earth, Father Frost, the Winter King, fell in love with the beautiful Spring, and she with him. It should have been against both their natures, but such is the way of love. It often transcends what is considered natural. But nature is apt to resist. Spring bore Father Frost a daughter, whom they named Snegurochka, the Snow Maiden. But from the time of her birth, winter reigned over the land of the Bavendians. The seasons never turned, and Snegurochka was kept close by her father in a cabin deep in the woods, guarded by the spirits of the forest. However, her father could not be with her all the time. He had blizzards to call up and icicles to form, and the forest guardians were not always as watchful as they might have been. So it was that Snegurochka often wandered from her cabin and hid among the snow-clad trees to watch the humans. One of these humans was the shepherd boy Lel, who often wandered the forest paths, playing his flute to the birds and beasts. It was a wonder to see the timid creatures creep forth from their hiding places at the sound of Lel's music, and sit with twitching ears as if enjoying every note. But Lel was not always alone with the forest creatures. Snegurochka noticed that he was a handsome youth, with high cheekbones and a lithe figure. The village girls noticed it too. They would chase after Lel and dance around him, begging him for a kiss. Or sometimes they would cover his eyes and hide among the trees, calling out to him in shrill voices, daring him to seek them. Snegurochka watched all this in wonder. What was the meaning of these games? What would it be like to be a human and have companions to chase about the woods? More and more often, she crept close to the village to watch its comings and goings, its work and its festivals. More and more, she felt lonely in her cabin, with none but wood sprites for company. The next time her father visited, she made a request. "Father, I beg to be born as a human and live my life as one of them." Father Frost was shocked by this request and sent for Snegurochka's mother, the beautiful Spring. "What is this, my snowflake?" Spring said. "You wish to live among humans?" "Yes," Snegurochka clapped her hands. "I wish to be a human and dance with the beautiful Lel. His music makes my heart sing and his face delights me." "My daughter," Father Frost scowled, "I must tell you now that it is impossible for you to feel love. If you ever did, you would melt away." But Snegurochka insisted that she wished to be human. "Very well," said the beautiful Spring, "it shall be so. But if you are ever in trouble, call on me, and I will come to your aid." In the village of the Bavendians lived an old couple named Bobble and Boblinka. For many years they lived in hope of having a child, but now so many years had passed that they had resigned themselves to childlessness. One day when the sun was shining, Bobble and Boblinka stood at the door of their hut, watching the boys and girls make snowmen. Their happy laughter brought a tear to Boblinka's eye. "If only we could have had a child." Bobble touched her arm. Let's make a snow child. Come on, we're not too old for fun. It will warm our old bones and gladden our hearts. So the old people ran out into the snow, much to the children's amusement, and busied themselves making a child of snow. Let's make it a girl, said Boblinka. I always wanted a daughter. When the snow girl was made, the couple stood back to admire their handiwork. Just then, the snow child began to shiver and shake. It shone with a silver light that made the old couple screw up their eyes. When they could look again, instead of a snow girl, there stood Snegurochka. She had been born a human, just as she wished. Snegurochka was the daughter Bobble and Boblinka had always dreamed of. She helped her new parents with their chores and was often singing and merry, but she would never sit too close to the stove, preferring a seat by the door where the icy wind whistled through the cracks. She would often go into the forest, which worried Bobble very much at first, but every time she came back she was always accompanied by a little red fox. Bobble started to think the fox was taking care of her, which of course it was, for it was one of the forest spirits in disguise. But Snegurochka's greatest delight was to sit in the window at the evening hour, when the music of rams' horns announced that the shepherds were coming home from the hills. Then she could run to the door of the hut in order to see Lel as he passed. "Play me a song, Lel, please." "Will you give me for my song?" asked Lel one night. "Will you give me a kiss?" Snegurochka screwed up her face. She'd seen young couples planting kisses on lips and cheeks. It seemed a pointless action. "Oh no, your song is worth much more than that. I'll give you this beautiful winter flower. See how delicate its petals are, yet it thrives among the snowdrifts. It is a true treasure. Here, I'll put it in your buttonhole." Now it was Lel's turn to make a face. "What do I want with a flower? It will only fade away." He turned towards the village girls, who crept towards him giggling. "Which of you can catch me and earn a kiss?" As Lel and the girls ran off together, Snegurochka's heart ached. Why does Lel like those other girls more than me? Oh, Mother, being human hurts. At the same time, another maiden in the village was preparing for her wedding. Kopava was betrothed to the merchant Mizgor. Both she and her parents approved the match, for he had paid a price in gold coins almost as handsome as he was. With his curling beard and broad chest, he was more than a youth, yet young enough to be vigorous. In Kopava's mind, the wedding couldn't come soon enough. Kopava had made friends with Snegurochka since she'd come to the village, so it was only natural that at the betrothal ceremony she called Snegurochka into the circle of maidens to dance their last dance before Kopava became a bride. But when Mizgor laid eyes on Snegurochka, he became as one bewitched. "Who is that?" he gasped. "I have never seen such beauty in my life. Tell me the maiden's name." "That is Snegurochka," the villagers said, "adopted daughter of Bobble and Boblinka." "Snegurochka," Mizgor breathed, and from that moment he paid no more attention to Kopava than he would a wooden doll. Kopava was distraught. She pleaded and enticed Mizgor, scolded and cursed him, but it made no difference. Snegurochka, for her part, was baffled. Why did Mizgor keep following her instead of Kopava? Didn't those two belong together, like Bobble and Boblinka, like Father Frost and Beautiful Spring? She only wanted Lel, not this man as broad and hairy as a bear. "I've changed my mind," Mizgor announced. "I will no longer wed Kopava. I will love the maiden Snegurochka." At this Kopava became hysterical. "I thought you were my friend," she screamed at Snegurochka. "And you, Mizgor, you have insulted both me and my family." As she collapsed sobbing to the ground, Lel ran to support her. The betrothal disaster caused such a stir in the village that the elders decided the only thing to be done was to take the case to the Tsar himself. In those days the Tsar's court travelled the land so the little father could judge his subjects fairly. In due time the Tsar arrived at that place, setting up his pavilion in the village square. Kopava's parents stood before the golden throne and begged the Tsar to hear their case. "Little father, Mizgo must be made to marry our daughter," they pleaded. Most of the villagers agreed, but Mizgo insisted he only loved Snegurochka. "And I won't marry Mizgo, the two-faced beast," Kopava said, putting an arm around Lel. "In that case, Mizgo must be banished," the Tsar said. Mizgo fell on his knees. "Little father, please, only see Snegurochka and you will understand." Snegurochka was called to appear. The Tsar was intrigued. She was undoubtedly a young woman in her prime, but pale as ice and delicate as a frost flower. The hairs on the back of the Tsar's neck stood on end. Many years ago, he had heard a prophecy from the priest of the sun god that the melting of a Snow Maiden's heart would bring an end to winter. Could this be the promised Snow Maiden? "My child, do you love this man?" The Tsar pointed to Mizgo. Snegurochka looked from Mizgo to Lel and back again. "I like—" she began, then shut her mouth. She liked Lel. He was pretty and made such beautiful music, but was that what the Tsar meant by love? "I like Lel," she said. "You are in love with the shepherd Lel?" The Tsar's tone was serious. "I don't know," said Snegurochka. "Do you think I am?" There was a gasp from the assembly. Boblinka stepped forward, trembling. "Little father, she doesn't understand what being in love is. It's not in her nature, but she's a good girl." "Not in her nature to be in love? And because of this frozen heart we are cursed with endless winter," the Tsar muttered. Aloud he said, "Whoever can make Snegurochka fall in love with him before another sun rises shall be richly rewarded from my own coffers when he takes her to wife." "Lel can do it," someone said. "Lel makes all the girls fall in love with him." "And then Mizgo will return to our daughter," Kopava's parents muttered. Snegurochka smiled. Now Lel would like her best of all and forget the other village girls. The Tsar had spoken. She and Lel would make music and dance together just as she had wished. The contest began immediately. Lel took out his flute to play, and the youths and maidens of the village danced a circle around him. Each wore a crown of flowers on their head. Snegurochka danced up to Lel and placed a flowery crown on his head while he played on. A whole crown of flowers was better than a single bloom. Now Lel would understand how much she liked him. When the music stopped, the watching Tsar gave his command. "Youths and maids, it is time to choose your sweethearts. I will bless any matches made today." He looked at Lel. "You too, young shepherd. Will you now choose the fair Snegurochka? Have you won her heart?" "Oh, choose me, Lel!" Snegurochka stood on her tiptoes. "Her heart is ice," Lel said. He went and put his arm around Kopava. "This is the bride I choose, a complete woman who will warm my bed and satisfy my heart. Not a cold snow maiden whose only gift is flowers." Snegurochka gave a cry of anguish. Lel had betrayed her. And Kopava too, how could they? As she watched, Lel led Kopava to the Tsar and kissed her in the presence of all the villagers. The Tsar stood and everyone followed him to bless the match at the shrine of the sun god. Snegurochka stood sobbing. "Lel, beautiful Lel, how could you abandon me? Am I just not pretty enough? Am I boring and stupid? I can love you too, I know I can. Just give me the time. Don't leave me, Lel." She was sobbing so hard that she didn't notice Mizgo until he whispered in her ear, "Forget the boy. I'll show you how a real man loves." He seized her hand and pressed it to his lips. "No! Get off me!" Snegurochka snatched her hand back. "I don't want you. I want Lel." "Lel? What can the shepherd boy give you? In my house you'll want for nothing. I'll treat you like the princess you are." "I don't love you," said Snegurochka. "You don't love Lel either. It's just an infatuation." Mizgo ran a finger along her jawline. "Sweet, beautiful Snegurochka, you've not yet awoken to the stirrings of love, but I can thaw that chilly heart. You'll fall in love with me, just wait and see. Stop it! Go away! Snegurochka pushed Mizgra away and ran into the forest, the little red fox at her heels. Mother! Mother, I need you! She cried. In a twinkling, the beautiful Spring appeared beside her daughter and put her fragrant arms about her. Don't weep, little daughter. Whatever is the matter? I need to love. I want to love. I'm sick of everyone saying I have a cold heart. The beautiful Spring looked at her seriously. Snegurochka, remember your father's warning. It is not in your nature to fall in love. If you do, you will melt away. She stroked her daughter's hair. Isn't it time you came home? Leave the humans to their ways. Your father and I will always love you, despite our differences, and the little red fox will always be true. But Snegurochka only wept more. I want to be properly human. I want to love, so I can get married like they do and not be alone. I don't want Kopava to have what I can't have. I'm tired of being a Snow Maiden. Spring kissed her daughter's forehead. My child, you are as human as they are. You don't need to fall in love for that. If you try to change your nature, you will break. Oh, but I cannot bear your tears. Your wish is granted. I give you the gift of love. And she disappeared into the forest, taking the fox with her. Snegurochka returned to the village. With every step she took, her heart grew warmer. Every bush, every flower seemed brighter, more fragrant than before. And was that a patch of green grass she saw? Were new leaves starting to bud where once only bare branches had been? As she reached the edge of the forest, Mizgra came running to meet her. Where have you been, my love? I searched the forest all night. Oh, thank the sun god you are safe. He took Snegurochka in his arms. As he did so, she felt a stirring within, a new sensation like the ripening of corn or the rising of dough. I'm in love, she exclaimed. Oh, Mizgra, I'm finally in love. Then let us hurry to the Tsar. No time to lose. Mizgra took her hand, and they ran through the village to the place where the Tsar had set up his pavilion. But what was this new sensation Snegurochka was feeling? Her heart was light, but her knees were weak. And was it her imagination? But did the sun shine stronger than before? It hurt her head. Little father, Mizgra cried in joy. Bless our match, for Snegurochka is in love with me and will be my bride. Praise to the sun god. The Tsar lifted his arms to pronounce the blessing. Mizgra drew Snegurochka close, and they kissed, tenderly, deeply, in full view of the whole village. Snegurochka's heart hammered. A fire was pulsing in her blood, a burning deep in her marrow. Was this ecstasy or death? It felt like both. She couldn't stand it, and yet she wanted more. Look, someone cried, look at the Snow Maiden. Mizgra clutched in disbelief at the sodden dress in his arms. At his feet lay a pool of water. Snegurochka, he cried, but his words were mere air. The Snow Maiden had melted, and with her death, the first sun of spring rose strong and bright over the land of the Bavendians, the first spring in 15 years. And that was The Snow Maiden from Asexual Myths and Tales by Elizabeth Hopkinson.